The sun had long set over the dusty plains of Arizona, casting a deep crimson hue across the horizon. Shadows stretched and twisted like spectral fingers reaching for the heavens. The air was still, save for the faint rustle of tumbleweeds rolling along the ground and the occasional hoot of an owl perched high in the branches of a gnarled mesquite tree. It was here, on this quiet night under skies scattered with countless stars, that our tale begins, a story buried in the annals of time, whispered by those who dare to speak it. In a small frontier town named Blackwater Crossing, nestled between two sprawling ranches, there stood a stable unlike any other. Its walls were weathered by years of harsh desert winds, its roof patched together with scraps of wood and tar. Yet within its confines lay secrets as dark as the midnight sky above. This wasn't just a place where horses rested. It was a sanctuary, a refuge from the dangers lurking beyond the town limits. And in the heart of the stable slept a stable boy whose name has been lost to history, but whose fate would change everything. He slept soundly amidst the hay, his body curled into itself like a young pup seeking warmth. The scent of fresh straw mingled with the earthy aroma of leather saddles filled the air around him. Outside, the world seemed at peace, but little did he know, the calm was only skin deep. For inside the stable, something stirred, a presence both familiar and foreign, waiting patiently for dawn to break, until the mare woke him with a scream. It began as a low whinny, soft enough to blend with the distant howl of a coyote. But then it grew louder, more urgent, until it became a piercing cry that shattered the silence of the night. The stable boy jolted awake, his eyes wide with confusion and fear. He sat up abruptly, brushing stray pieces of hay from his hair as he tried to make sense of what had happened. The mare, a magnificent chestnut stallion known as Red Dawn, was thrashing about in her stall, her hooves kicking wildly against the wooden walls. Her ears were pinned back, and her nostrils flared as if she were seeing something unimaginable. "Red Dawn," the boy called out, his voice trembling. "What's wrong with you?" But the horse refused to settle. Instead, she let out another ear-splitting scream, one that echoed through the empty streets of Blackwater Crossing. The boy scrambled to his feet, his bare toes sinking into the cool dirt floor of the stable. He approached the stall cautiously, unsure of what might have spooked the normally gentle animal. As he reached for the latch, a chill ran down his spine, an unexplainable feeling that something was terribly amiss. And then he saw it. A shadow moved across the far corner of the stable, flickering like smoke caught in a draft. It wasn't the silhouette of a person or an animal, but rather something indistinct, formless, yet undeniably malevolent. The boy froze, his hand hovering over the latch. His breath hitched in his throat as he stared at the darkness, trying to convince himself it was merely a trick of the light. But deep down he knew better. "Who's there?" he demanded, his voice barely above a whisper. There was no answer, only silence, and the faintest hint of movement, as though whatever lurked in the shadows was watching him closely. The boy swallowed hard, his heart pounding like a drum in his chest. He glanced back at Red Dawn, who was now quieter but still visibly shaken. Her flanks heaved with each labored breath, and her eyes darted nervously toward the source of disturbance. Before he could act, the door to the stable creaked open, revealing a figure silhouetted against the moonlight. The boy turned sharply, relief washing over him momentarily before curiosity replaced it entirely. Standing in the doorway was a man clad in a long duster coat, his face partially obscured by the brim of a wide-brimmed hat. A six-shooter hung loosely at his side, its polished surface glinting faintly in the dim light. "Evening, kid," the man drawled, stepping further into the stable. His boots scuffed against the packed dirt floor, creating a rhythmic cadence that matched the boy's racing pulse. "Mind telling me why your horse sounds like she's seen a ghost?" I don't know," the boy stammered, pointing toward the corner. "Something's in here. I swear it." The stranger raised an eyebrow, his expression skeptical. "Ain't much room for ghosts in a place like this," he said, though his tone suggested otherwise. Without another word, he drew his revolver and advanced slowly toward the corner, his movements deliberate and measured. The boy watched anxiously, clutching the edge of the stall door for support. As the man neared the shadow, it dissipated completely, vanishing as though it had never existed. The boy exhaled sharply, his knees nearly buckling beneath him. The stranger holstered his weapon and turned back to face him, a smirk playing on his lips. "Looks like you got yourself spooked good, huh?" he teased. "Maybe next time you ought to check your mirrors before accusing folks of haunting your barn." The boy opened his mouth to protest, but the words died on his tongue. There was something about the man, something unsettling, that made him hesitate. His eyes, sharp and calculating, seemed to peer straight through the boy's soul. And yet, despite the initial unease, the boy couldn't help but feel drawn to him, as though their meeting was anything but coincidental. "What's your name, kid?" the man asked, leaning casually against a nearby post. "Tommy," the boy replied after a moment's pause. "Tommy Miller." "Well, Tommy Miller," the stranger said, tipping his hat slightly. "The name's Jack Harper, and I reckon we've got ourselves a mystery to solve." Jack Harper wasn't your typical wanderer, unlike most drifters who pass through Blackwater Crossing. He carried himself with a quiet confidence that spoke volumes about his past. Rumors swirled among the townsfolk about his origins. Some claimed he was a former outlaw turned bounty hunter, while others insisted he was a soldier haunted by the ghosts of war. Whatever the truth may have been, one thing was certain: Jack Harper was a man with a purpose, even if he rarely shared it with anyone. Together, Tommy and Jack spent the remainder of the night investigating the strange occurrences within the stable. They searched every inch of the space, uncovering hidden compartments behind loose planks of wood, and discovering old letters tucked away in forgotten corners. Each discovery brought them closer to unraveling the mystery, but also deeper into danger. Among the artifacts they found was a journal belonging to the previous owner of the ranch, a man named Samuel Whitaker. Its pages were yellowed with age, the ink faded but still legible. As Tommy read aloud excerpts from the diary, a chilling picture began to emerge, one of betrayal, greed, and ultimately tragedy. Samuel Whitaker had once been a prosperous rancher, respected by all who knew him. But his fortunes took a turn for the worse when he discovered a vein of gold hidden beneath the hills surrounding his property. Greedy prospectors soon descended upon the land, eager to claim the riches for themselves. What followed was a series of violent confrontations, culminating in a deadly shootout that left Whitaker and several others dead. But the journal hinted at something more sinister: a curse placed upon the ranch by a shaman angered by the desecration of sacred ground. According to the final entry, Whitaker believed the spirits of fallen had returned to haunt the living, seeking vengeance for their untimely demise. "It doesn't add up," Jack muttered, pacing the length of the stable. "If there really is a curse, why is it targeting you and the horse?" Tommy shook his head, equally baffled. "I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm the only one here at night. Or maybe—" his voice trailed off, his gaze drifting toward the corner where the shadow had appeared earlier. "Or maybe what?" Jack pressed, sensing the boy's hesitation. "Maybe it knows me," Tommy admitted reluctantly, "like it's been watching me all along." Jack stopped mid-step, his expression darkening. "You think it's personal?" Tommy nodded, his jaw clenched tightly. "Yeah, I do." By morning, the skies had cleared, revealing a brilliant blue expanse dotted with wispy clouds. The sun rose higher, casting golden rays across the parched landscape. Despite the beauty of the day, neither Tommy nor Jack felt inclined to celebrate. Instead, they prepared themselves for whatever lay ahead, arming themselves with makeshift weapons and steeling their resolve. Their first stop was the outskirt of the ranch, where the remains of an old mine shaft stood, as a grim reminder of the events described in Whitaker's journal. The entrance was partially collapsed, vines creeping over the jagged rocks like nature's bandage. Inside, the air was thick with the smell of damp earth and decay, each step echoing ominously through the narrow tunnels. As they ventured deeper, the temperature dropped noticeably, sending shivers down their spines. Strange symbols carved into the walls caught the flickering light of their lanterns, their meanings lost to time. Jack studied them closely, his fingers tracing the grooves as if searching for answers. "These ain't no ordinary markings," he murmured, his voice low and tense. "They're warnings. Someone didn't want folks coming down here." Tommy nodded, his grip tightening on the crowbar he carried. "Do you think it's connected to the curse?" "It's possible," Jack replied, "but until we find something concrete, we can't be sure." Their search led them to a chamber buried deep within the mountain, its ceiling supported by crumbling pillars of stone. In the center of the room stood an altar fashioned from rough-hewn rock, atop which rested a small, ornate box. The carvings adorning its surface depicted scenes of suffering and despair, their details so intricate they seemed almost lifelike. Without hesitation, Jack stepped forward and lifted the lid. Inside lay a single object, a feather black as midnight, its edges shimmering faintly in the dim light. As soon as it came into contact with the air, the feather began to glow, emitting a soft hum that resonated throughout the chamber. "What is it?" Tommy asked, his voice barely audible. "I don't know," Jack admitted, his brow furrowed. "But whatever it is, it ain't natural." Suddenly, the ground beneath them trembled violently, shaking loose debris from the ceiling. The feather's glow intensified, bathing the room in an eerie light. From the shadows emerged figures, ghostly apparitions of men long dead, their faces twisted in anger and sorrow. Among them was Samuel Whitaker himself, his translucent form staring directly at Tommy. "You belong to us," Whitaker intoned, his voice hollow and haunting. "Your blood runs with ours. You cannot escape your destiny." Tommy stumbled backward, his mind reeling. "What are you talking about? I'm not related to you." "But you are," Jack interjected, realization dawning on his features. "Remember the letters we found? One of them mentioned a son, your great-grandfather. You're Whitaker's descendant." The revelation hit Tommy like a punch to the gut. All this time, he'd thought himself an outsider, a mere observer in the unfolding drama. Now he understood the truth. The curse wasn't random. It was personal. The spirits weren't seeking revenge on strangers. They were demanding justice from family. Whitaker's form loomed closer, his ethereal hands reaching out. "Join us," he urged. "End the cycle of pain." "No," Tommy shouted, brandishing the crowbar. "I won't let you control me." With a desperate cry, he swung the tool, striking the feather with all his might. The impact sent shockwaves rippling through the chamber, causing the apparitions to waver and fade. Whitaker's voice echoed one last time before disappearing altogether, leaving nothing but silence in its wake. When the dust settled, Jack approached Tommy, placing a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "You did good, kid," he said softly. "Real good." For a moment, the weight of the world seemed to lift from Tommy's shoulders. He allowed himself a brief smile, grateful for the reprieve. But deep down, he knew the battle was far from over. The curse might have been broken, but the scars it left behind would remain forever etched in his memory. And so, under the watchful eyes of a star-filled sky, the stable boy who once slept peacefully in the hay found himself forever changed by the whispers of past. The days that followed were anything but ordinary for Tommy. The ranch, once a place of quiet routine, now buzzed with an undercurrent of unease. Whispers traveled through Blackwater Crossing like wildfire, each tale more exaggerated than the last. Some claimed they'd seen shadows moving in the dead of night, while others swore the wind carried the faint sound of hoofbeats where no horse could be found. But Tommy knew better. He had faced the curse head-on and lived to tell the tale, or at least part of it. Jack Harper stayed longer than expected, his reasons unclear even to himself. Perhaps it was curiosity, or maybe something deeper, a need to ensure the boy was truly safe. Whatever the case, he became a fixture around the ranch, helping with chores and keeping a watchful eye on the surroundings. His presence brought both comfort and questions, as Tommy often caught him staring off into the distance, lost in thought. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the landscape, Jack approached Tommy, who was mending a fence near the edge of the property. The boy looked up, wiping sweat from his brow with the back of his hand. "You've been awful quiet lately," Jack remarked, leaning casually against a wooden post. "Something on your mind?" Tommy hesitated, his fingers pausing mid-stitch. "It's just, I can't shake the feeling that there's more to this whole thing than we know." Jack raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "Like what?" "I don't know," Tommy admitted, frustration creeping into his voice. "But every time I think about it, I keep coming back to one question. Why me? Why did the spirits choose me specifically?" Jack considered the question carefully, his gaze fixed on the distant hills. "Maybe it wasn't entirely random," he said finally. "Sure, you're Whitaker descendant, but there's got to be more to it. Something about you, something unique, drew their attention." Tommy frowned, unsure whether to take comfort in those words or find them unsettling. "What do you mean by unique?" Jack shrugged, but there was a glint in his eyes that suggested he knew more than he let on. "Let's just say people aren't always what they seem. Maybe you've got a knack for things most folks wouldn't dare touch." Before Tommy could press further, a distant cry cut through the air, a sharp, piercing sound unlike anything either of them had heard before. Both men froze, their heads snapping in the direction of the noise. "That wasn't a coyote," Jack muttered, already reaching for his revolver. "No," Tommy agreed, grabbing the crowbar he'd used during their encounter with the curse. "And it definitely wasn't Red Dawn." Without another word, they set off toward the source of the sound, their footsteps quickening as adrenaline coursed through their veins. The moon had yet to rise, leaving the world cloaked in shadow, illuminated only by the faint glow of stars above. The air grew colder as they ventured deeper into the wilderness, the silence pressing down on them like a heavy blanket. After what felt like hours, but was likely mere minutes, they stumbled upon a clearing bathed in an unnatural light. At its center stood a figure cloaked in darkness, their silhouette obscured by swirling mist. Surrounding them were remnants of the same symbols Jack had noticed in the mine, the markings that spoke of warnings and forbidden knowledge. "Who are you?" Jack demanded, his voice steady despite the tension coiled within him. The figure turned slowly, revealing features both human and otherworldly. Their eyes gleamed with inner fire, and their lips curved into a smile that sent shivers down Tommy's spine. "I am the Keeper," the being intoned, their voice resonating like thunder. "And I have waited a very long time for this moment." "For what moment?" Tommy asked, his grip tightening on the crowbar. "The moment when the Chosen One awakens," the Keeper replied, gesturing toward Tommy. "You, boy, carry within you a power greater than any curse. A power that has lain dormant for generations, waiting for the right catalyst to unleash it." Tommy's heart raced, his mind struggling to process the revelation. "What kind of power?" "A power that can bridge worlds," the Keeper explained, stepping closer. "A power that can heal or destroy. It is your choice, child of Whitaker, but beware, the path you choose will shape not only your destiny, but the fate of all who walk this earth." Before Tommy could respond, the ground beneath him began to tremble violently. The symbols etched into the dirt glowed brighter, forming a circle of light that encased the trio. Jack fired his revolver, the bullets ricocheting harmlessly off the barrier. "Stay calm," Jack shouted, positioning himself between Tommy and the Keeper. "We don't know what this thing wants." "I want nothing," the Keeper corrected, spreading their arms wide. "I merely serve as a guide. The decision rests solely with the boy." As the tremors intensified, Tommy felt a warmth spreading through his chest, radiating outward until it consumed his entire body. Images flashed before his eyes, visions of past battles, future conflicts, and countless lives intertwined by threads invisible to the naked eye. He saw himself standing amidst chaos, wielding a force so immense it defied comprehension. And then, just as suddenly, the vision ceased. "I won't let you manipulate me," Tommy cried, raising the crowbar high above his head. With a swift motion, he struck the ground, unleashing a shock wave that shattered the barrier and sent the Keeper stumbling backward. The unnatural light faded, replaced by the soft glow of the rising moon. When the dust settled, the Keeper was gone, leaving behind nothing but the eerie symbols carved into the earth. Jack rushed to Tommy's side, placing a hand on his shoulder. "You okay, kid?" I think so," Tommy replied, his breath ragged. "But I don't understand any of this. What was that thing? And why does it keep saying I'm special?" Jack sighed, his expression grave. "I hate to admit it, but I think we're just scratching the surface of something much bigger. This isn't over, not by a long shot." As they made their way back to the ranch, the weight of the Keeper's words lingered heavily in Tommy's mind. He glanced up at the stars, their brilliance undiminished despite the turmoil below. Somewhere out there, among the infinite expanse, lay answers to questions he hadn't yet dared to ask. And though fear gnawed at the edges of his resolve, Tommy knew one thing for certain. He would face whatever came next head-on, armed with courage and the unwavering support of the man beside him. For in the Wild West, legends were born not from tales of glory alone, but from the struggles endured and the choices made when the stakes were highest. And Tommy Miller, once a simple stable boy, was fast becoming a legend in his own right. The days that followed were marked by an unsettling calm, as if the world itself was holding its breath. Tommy and Jack returned to the ranch, their minds heavy with the revelations of the night before. The keeper's words echoed in Tommy's thoughts like a haunting melody, each note striking deeper into the core of his being. He tried to focus on his daily chores, feeding the horses, repairing fences, drawing water from the well, but his mind kept drifting back to the clearing, the glowing symbols, and the power he had felt coursing through him. Jack, too, seemed lost in thought, though he masked it better than Tommy. He spent hours examining the journal they had found in the stable, poring over every word as if searching for hidden meanings. At night, when the stars painted the sky in silver hues, he would sit outside the bunkhouse, staring at the horizon as if waiting for something or someone to appear. One evening, as the sun dipped below the mountains, casting long shadows across the yard, Jack approached Tommy, who was mending a torn saddle. The boy looked up, sensing the seriousness in the man's demeanor. "We need to talk," Jack said, his voice low but firm. Tommy nodded, setting down his tools. "About what happened?" "About everything," Jack replied, leading him to a nearby rock where they could sit undisturbed. "You remember those letters we found in the stable? The ones mentioning your great-grandfather?" Tommy frowned, recalling the faded ink and cryptic messages. "Yeah, what about them?" "There was one letter I didn't mention," Jack confessed, pulling a folded piece of paper from his coat pocket. It wasn't in the journal. It was tucked away in a separate compartment behind a loose plank. He handed the letter to Tommy, who unfolded it carefully. The handwriting was neat but hurried, as if the writer had been pressed for time. As Tommy read, his heart began to race. "To my son, should you ever find this, know that I did not leave you out of malice or neglect. The curse that haunts our family is not merely a spirit's wrath. It is a legacy passed down through bloodlines. You carry within you a gift, a power meant to protect, but also capable of immense destruction. Beware those who seek to exploit it, for there are forces beyond our understanding at play. If you hear the call of the keeper, do not answer lightly. Choose wisely, for your choice will determine the fate of many." Tommy's hands trembled as he finished reading. His throat felt dry, his chest tight with emotion. This can't be real," he stammered, looking up at Jack. "How could my own family keep something like this from me?" Jack sighed, running a hand over his face. "I don't know why they hid it, kid. Maybe they hoped it wouldn't come to pass. Maybe they thought protecting you meant keeping you ignorant. But now that the truth's out, we've got to figure out what it means, and fast." "What does it mean?" Tommy asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "What kind of power am I supposed to have? And why does it matter so much?" Jack hesitated, choosing his words carefully. "From what I gather, it's tied to the land, the earth itself. Your ancestors weren't just ranchers. They were guardians of sorts. They protected sacred sites, places where the veil between worlds is thin. When the curse hit, it disrupted that balance. Now it seems like the keeper wants to restore it, but using you as the key." Tommy stared at him, disbelief written all over his face. "Me? A key? That sounds crazy." "It might sound crazy," Jack admitted, "but it fits. Think about it. The spirits chose you specifically. The keeper appeared to you, not me. There's something about you that sets you apart." "But I don't feel special," Tommy protested. "I'm just me, a stable boy who sleeps in hay." "That may be true," Jack said, his tone softening. "But sometimes being ordinary is exactly what makes someone extraordinary. You haven't let fear control you, not once. You stood up to the curse, faced a keeper, and survived. Most people wouldn't even dare try." Tommy looked away, unsure how to respond. He wanted to believe Jack's words, but doubt gnawed at the edges of his confidence. Could he really be the chosen one? Was he strong enough to handle whatever came next? Before he could dwell on it further, A distant rumble interrupted their conversation. Both men turned toward the sound, their eyes narrowing as they scanned the horizon. In the distance, dark clouds gathered, swirling unnaturally against the clear evening sky. Lightning forked to the heavens, illuminating shapes moving beneath the storm. "What is that?" Tommy whispered, his voice tinged with fear. "I don't know," Jack admitted, reaching for his revolver. "But we're about to find out." Without another word, they sprinted toward the source of the disturbance, their boots kicking up clouds of dust as they ran. The air grew colder with each step, the wind picking up until it howled like a pack of wolves. By the time they reached the edge of the ranch, the storm had descended fully upon them, shrouding the landscape in darkness. In the center of the chaos stood a group of figures, men dressed in tattered clothing, their faces obscured by hoods. Around them danced flames, licking at the ground as if feeding off some unseen force. Symbols identical to those in the mine glowed faintly around their feet, pulsing in rhythm with the thunder. "They're summoning something," Jack muttered, his grip tightening on his weapon. "Summoning what?" Tommy asked, dread pooling in his stomach. Before Jack could answer, a deafening roar split the air. From the heart of the storm emerged a creature unlike anything either of them had ever seen, a massive beast with scales like obsidian and eyes that burned with inner fire. Its wings spanned the width of the ranch, blocking out the moonlight entirely. As it landed, the ground shook violently, sending rocks tumbling down the nearby hillsides. "The Guardian," Jack breathed, his voice filled with awe and terror. Tommy swallowed hard, his knees threatening to buckle beneath him. "Guardian? Of what?" "The land," Jack explained quickly. "Or maybe us. Either way, it doesn't look happy." As if on cue, the creature let out another ear-splitting roar, its gaze locking onto Tommy. For a moment, time seemed to freeze. The wind died down, the flames extinguished themselves, and the hooded figure stepped back, bowing low as if acknowledging the boy's presence. "You," the Guardian intoned, its voice resonating deep within Tommy's chest. "You are the chosen one." The keeper spoke truly. I don't understand," Tommy stammered, taking a cautious step forward. "Why me? What do you want?" "To test you," the Guardian replied, its wings spreading wide. "Your power is vast but untrained. If you wish to fulfill your destiny, you must prove yourself worthy." "How?" Tommy asked, his heart pounding in his chest. "A trial awaits you," the Guardian declared, lowering its head until its burning eyes were level with Tommy's. "Face it, and you will discover the truth of your heritage. Fail, and the balance will tip forever." Before Tommy could respond, the world around him blurred, colors bleeding together like watercolors left in the rain. When the haze cleared, he found himself standing in a place both familiar and alien, a vast expanse of desert surrounded by towering cliffs carved with ancient runes. The sky above was a kaleidoscope of shifting hues, while beneath his feet lay a path made of shimmering glass. "This is your trial," the Guardian's voice echoed in his mind. "Follow the path and confront the shadows within yourself. Only then will you uncover the strength needed to wield your power." Without warning, the vision ended, leaving Tommy back in the storm-laden reality of the ranch. The Guardian was gone, as were the hooded figures. All that remained was the eerie silence of the aftermath. "Well," Jack said finally, breaking the tension, "looks like you've got your work cut out for you." Tommy nodded slowly, determination replacing his earlier uncertainty. "Whatever comes next, I won't back down. Not anymore." Jack grinned, clapping him on the shoulder. "That's the spirit, kid. Now let's get ready. Whatever this trial throws at you, we'll face it together." And so, under the watchful eye of the star-filled sky, Tommy prepared to embark on the journey of a lifetime, one that would test his courage, challenge his resolve, and reveal the true nature of the power within him. For in the Wild West, legends were forged not only in battles fought, but in trials endured, and Tommy Miller was destined to become a legend among legends. The days that followed were marked by an uneasy calm, as if the world itself was holding its breath. Tommy and Jack returned to the ranch, their minds heavy with the revelations they had uncovered. The keeper's words echoed in Tommy's thoughts like a relentless drumbeat, a power greater than any curse. It wasn't just the weight of his lineage or the burden of being Whitaker's descendant that troubled him now. It was a knowledge that he might possess something far beyond what he could comprehend. Jack, ever vigilant, spent most of his time patrolling the perimeter of the property, his eyes scanning the horizon for signs of trouble. He spoke little, lost in thought, but when he did open up, it was usually to share snippets of wisdom gleaned from years on the road. "You gotta remember, kid," he said one evening as they sat around a small fire near the edge of the pasture. "Power ain't always about strength or control. Sometimes it's about choice, about knowing when to use it and when not to." Tommy nodded, though his mind remained preoccupied. "But how do I even know what this power is? Or what I'm supposed to do with it?" Jack shrugged, tossing another log onto the fire. The flames crackled softly, their warmth a stark contrast to the chill in the air. "That's something you'll have to figure out on your own. All I can tell you is that it won't come easy. Powers like the ones they're talking about, they don't hand themselves over willingly. You'll need patience, focus, and maybe a little help along the way." Help. The word lingered in Tommy's mind long after Jack had drifted off to sleep. Help from whom? Certainly not the keeper, whose motives were as murky as the shadows they seemed to command. And yet, there was something nagging at the edges of Tommy's consciousness, a feeling that perhaps the answers lay closer than he realized. It began subtly at first, a tingling sensation in his fingertips whenever he touched certain objects, like the hilt of Jack's revolver or the reins of Red Dawn. Then came the dreams, vivid, surreal visions that left him gasping awake in the middle of the night. In these dreams, he saw himself standing amidst swirling winds, his hands glowing with an ethereal light that banished darkness wherever it went. But alongside these moments of clarity came scenes of destruction, fields ablaze, skies torn apart by thunderbolts, and faces twisted in anguish. One morning, unable to shake the images from his mind, Tommy sought solace in the stable. Red Dawn greeted him with a soft nicker, her presence a comforting anchor in the storm of uncertainty. As he brushed her coat, his fingers brushed against the leather strap of her bridle. Instantly, a spark shot through his palm, startling him so much that he dropped the brush. "What the?" he muttered, staring at his hand as though it belonged to someone else. The sensation didn't fade. Instead, it grew stronger, spreading up his arm and settling in his chest like a warm ember. Confused but curious, Tommy reached out again, this time placing both hands flat against the wooden wall of the stable. The same energy surged through him, causing the wood beneath his palms to glow faintly before returning to normal. Red Dawn whinnied nervously, stepping back as if sensing the shift in her companion. Tommy turned to her, his heart pounding. Is this what they meant? Is this my power? He tried to summon the energy again, focusing all his willpower on the task. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, the faintest hint of light began to emanate from his fingertips. It wasn't much, just enough to illuminate the hay bales stacked nearby, but it was undeniable proof that something extraordinary was happening. But then, as quickly as it had appeared, the light vanished. Tommy stumbled backward, his breath coming in short gasps. His head throbbed, and his vision blurred momentarily before clearing. When he looked down at his hands, they were trembling uncontrollably. "Tommy!" Jack's voice cut through the haze, pulling him back to reality. The older man burst into the stable, his gun drawn and his face etched with concern. "What happened?" "I heard Red Dawn screaming. I think I figured out part of it," Tommy stammered, still trying to process what had occurred. "The power, the thing the keeper mentioned, I think I tapped into it." Jack holstered his weapon, his expression shifting from alarm to curiosity. "You sure about that?" Tommy nodded, showing him his hands. "I felt it, like electricity running through me. And for a second I could make things glow, just by touching them." Jack studied him closely, his brow furrowed. "That's something. All right, but it sounds dangerous too. If you ain't careful, you could burn yourself out, or worse." "I know," Tommy admitted, frustration creeping into his tone. "But I can't ignore it anymore. Whatever this is, it's a part of me now. And if the keeper's right, if this power can heal or destroy, I need to learn how to control it." Jack placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. Then we'd best get started. But first, we need to find out more about where it comes from. Their search led them to the outskirts of Blackwater Crossing, where rumors whisper of an old healer who lived in seclusion among the hills. Her name was Maeve O'Reilly, a woman shrouded in mystery and steeped in traditions few understood. Some claimed she could cure ailments no doctor could diagnose. Others swore she communed with spirits long departed. Whether truth or legend, Jack believed she might hold the key to unlocking Tommy's newfound abilities. Finding her proved challenging. The trail wound through dense thickets and rocky terrain, testing both their endurance and resolve. By the time they reached her cabin, a modest structure nestled at the base of a towering oak tree, they were weary but determined. Maeve answered their knock without hesitation, her sharp green eyes sizing them up instantly. She was shorter than either man expected, her silver-streaked hair tied back in a loose braid. Wrinkles mapped her weathered face, but her movements betrayed surprising agility. "You're looking for answers," she stated plainly, stepping aside to let them enter. "And I suppose you expect me to provide them." Tommy opened his mouth to speak, but Jack beat him to it. "We're looking for insight into something unusual, something that doesn't fit into the usual rules." Maeve raised an eyebrow, gesturing for them to sit. "Unusual, you say? Well, I've seen plenty of that in my lifetime. Tell me what brought you here." Reluctantly, Tommy recounted the events leading up to their discovery, omitting only the keeper's involvement. Maeve listened intently, her expression unreadable until he described the sensation in his hands. She murmured, stroking her chin thoughtfully. "Energy manipulation, not uncommon among those with latent gifts, though rarely seen in such raw form. You must be cautious, boy. This kind of power can consume you if you're not careful." "How do I stop it from doing that?" Tommy asked eagerly. "You don't stop it," Maeve replied, her tone firm. "You guide it, channel it, let it flow naturally instead of forcing it. Think of it like water. You can dam it up temporarily, but eventually it will break free. Better to direct its course than try to contain it entirely." She handed him a small pouch filled with herbs and crystals, explaining their properties and uses. "These will help ground you, keep your energies balanced. Practice daily, starting with small exercises. Focus on intent above all else." As they prepared to leave, Maeve added one final warning. "Remember, power attracts attention. Be mindful of who you trust and who might seek to exploit what you possess." Back at the ranch, Tommy threw himself into training with renewed determination. Under Jack's watchful eye, he practiced controlling the energy, learning to channel it into harmless bursts of light rather than overwhelming surges. Progress was slow, fraught with setbacks and moments of doubt, but each success fueled his resolve further. Yet even as he honed his skills, the shadow of the keeper loomed large in his mind. What was their true purpose? Were they truly guides or something far darker? One night, as the moon hung low in the sky, Tommy found himself drawn once more to the clearing where he had faced the keeper. The symbols etched into the earth had faded, but the memory of their glow lingered vividly in his mind. Kneeling beside the remnants, he pressed his palm to the ground, closing his eyes and concentrating. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, a whisper drifted into his consciousness, not spoken aloud, but felt deep within his soul. "The journey has only begun, child of Whitaker. Choose wisely, for every step shapes the path ahead." Tommy jerked his hand away, his pulse racing. The voice was gone, leaving behind only silence and the rustle of leaves in the breeze. Yet somehow he knew the message was real. Standing, he gazed out across the vast expanse of wilderness surrounding him. The Wild West was a land of untamed beauty and hidden dangers, its secrets buried beneath layers of history and myth. And Tommy Miller, once a simple stable boy, was fast becoming a part of that legacy. A guardian of truths unknown, armed with powers unimaginable. Whatever challenges lay ahead, one thing was certain. He would face them head-on, guided by courage, supported by friendship, and driven by a purpose that transcended mere survival. For in the Wild West, legends weren't born. They were forged in fire and tested by fate. And Tommy's story was only beginning.